The envelope was thick, cream-colored, and tied with a navy silk ribbon. It stood out in the mailbox like it didn't belong. Not among the bills, grocery flyers, or overdue notices. Lily turned it over twice in her hands before opening it. No return address. Just her full name, printed in gold script. Inside, the card was weighty, embossed, and brutally elegant. Mr. Ethan James Cole requests the honor of your presence at his wedding to Miss Valerie Wynne. N.O. Personal note. No apology. No warning. Just details, time, place, date. A vineyard estate on the coast. Saturday, 5 p.m. Formal attire. Lily stared at it for a long time, her breath slow, shallow. The last time she had seen Ethan was through the window of a departing town car. 5 years ago. Rain streaked the glass. His face, unreadable. Her belly was only just beginning to show. She had stood there with her hands pressed against her coat, wondering how a man could vanish from a life he helped create. Mom? She turned. Noah stood in the doorway of the kitchen, one sock missing, a piece of peanut butter toast in his hand. Crumbs lined his mouth. His eyes, large, curious, dark-lashed, mirrored a man he'd never met. He tilted his head. Why are you staring? She slipped the invitation under a stack of magazines. No reason, she said softly. Just tired. He ran off, humming something tuneless, and she sat down at the kitchen table, listening to his footsteps fade down the hall. Her fingers tapped the table's edge. Why now? If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and spread the word, and tell us where you're watching from. She hadn't heard Ethan's name in years, hadn't spoken it out loud. She'd made a life with silence, quiet groceries, budget work-from-home jobs, bedtime stories with made-up heroes. Noah never asked about his father until recently. A classmate had drawn a family tree. Noah came home and said, I need your name. And mine. But who's the third one? She hadn't answered. Now here it was, the third one, inviting her to a wedding as if they were old friends. As if he hadn't paid her to disappear. As if her silence was a gift he could unwrap again when it suited him. She reached for her phone, then pulled her hand back. She didn't need to call anyone. She didn't need advice. What she needed was to look him in the eyes, let him see what he left behind. Let him see what couldn't be erased. She opened the invitation again, smoothed the ribbon out flat, read it twice more. Then she looked toward the hallway where Noah had disappeared, his laughter echoing faintly. Do you want to go on a little trip this weekend? She called. Noah popped his head back around the corner. Will there be cake? She smiled, just slightly. There just might be. The office smelled faintly of mint tea and old leather. Rain ticked gently against the high windows as Lily sat. Across from Dr. Marion Fields, the therapist who had seen her through the darkest chapters of her life, she didn't speak at first, just held the wedding invitation in her lap like it might bite. You opened it, Marion said softly. Lily nodded. I thought it might be a mistake. But no, he wants me there. Marion tilted her head. You don't have to go. He thinks. I won't, Lily said, voice tight. He thinks I'm still scared of him. She wasn't wrong to be. The memory of Ethan didn't arrive all at once. It came in pieces, polished shoes tapping across the marble hallway of their old apartment, the gentle clink of his cufflinks against his whiskey glass, the way he smiled for guests and growled when they left. She had told him about the pregnancy. In late November, they were on the balcony, champagne half drunk, city lights winking below. I'm pregnant, she had said. Breathless, he had blinked. Paused, then smiled, cold and calculated. We'll handle it, he replied. 2 days later, she came home to find the locks changed. A week later, she was served papers through his family's attorney, Marcus Yates. A silver-haired man with a permanent smirk and the words mental instability highlighted 3 times in the document. Postpartum depression, they claimed. Signs of emotional volatility. Potential harm to the unborn child. It wasn't true, but they had power. And silence was currency. Marcus had slid a contract across a polished conference table. Lily's reflection warped in its surface. Sign this, he said, and you'll be taken care of. No lawsuits. No press. A monthly allowance. Consider it a graceful exit. The paper didn't say hush money, but it didn't have to. Lily signed. Not because she agreed, but because she was exhausted, afraid, and 6 months pregnant. She used the money to move out of state. Changed her number. Worked nights in a pharmacy. Then mornings at a nursery school, Noah was born in silence. No flowers, no visitors, just her and him and the hum of fluorescent hospital lights. Back in the therapist's office, Lily touched the edge of the invitation again. Her fingers were steady. He has no idea who Noah is. No idea how much he looks like him. And, what do you want from him now? Marion asked gently. Lily thought about that. Then said, nothing. Then why go? Because he erased me. I want him to see what he missed. Marion leaned forward. Closure doesn't always come in confrontation. Lily smiled faintly. Maybe not. But sometimes it shows up in a little boy's eyes. Outside, the rain began to ease. She stood, folded the invitation, and slipped it into her coat. I have unfinished business. As she opened the door, Marion called softly. Be careful, Lily. She didn't turn back. She just whispered, I will. The dress Lily chose was simple, cream linen, high-necked, long sleeves, just enough to suggest elegance without invitation. No jewelry, no makeup except for a sheer gloss and the faintest trace of liner. Her hair was pinned low, loose tendrils brushing her cheekbones. She didn't want to look like she was crashing a wedding. She wanted to look like she belonged. Noah stood in front of the mirror, tugging at the collar of his tiny navy suit. His tie was crooked. His shoes were too new. He didn't complain, just shifted from foot to foot, eyes wide with quiet nerves. Do I have to talk to him? He asked. Lily knelt beside him and fixed his tie. No, sweetheart, she said. Not unless you want to. Will he know who I am? Lily paused. Yes, she whispered. He'll know. The venue was impossible to miss, a sprawling vineyard estate nestled in coastal cliffs, all white columns and gold-trimmed glass. Uniformed valets, flower-lined pathways, champagne already flowing before vows were even spoken. The kind of wedding that made headlines and bloated Instagram feeds. Lily stepped from the car with her son's hand in hers. Noah held tight to her. Fingers to as they approached the entrance, a hush spread like a ripple across still water. First, a security guard squinted at her. Then one of the catering staff recognized her, not from real memory, but from the familiarity of her face. Then someone gasped, Is that? A bridesmaid nearly dropped her bouquet. Inside the ceremony space, the crowd stood waiting. String musicians played softly. The arch was wrapped in orchids. And there, at the front, stood Ethan Cole, polished, controlled, smiling politely as the photographer took his position. Then his eyes found her, and the smile collapsed. He didn't move. His gaze dropped to the child standing beside her. Noah tilted his head, his curls catching the light. The resemblance was immediate. Unmistakable. Ethan's jaw clenched. Lily said nothing. She didn't break pace. She didn't flinch. She walked down the side aisle, not center, not dramatic, and found an empty seat in the third row. She lowered herself into it with quiet grace, folding Noah's coat on her lap. He sat beside her, feet dangling. Valerie, the bride, stood at the end of the aisle, dressed in lace and illusion netting, her lips parted slightly. She followed Ethan's stare, saw Lily, then the boy. Her smile faltered. The officiant cleared his throat. Unsure, the music wavered. The crowd murmured. Photographers froze, lenses halfway to their faces. It wasn't just a disruption. It was a fracture. Lily smoothed Noah's collar. He leaned against her arm. Across the venue, Ethan's hands slowly curled into fists. She didn't look away. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. She had brought the truth, dressed in a navy suit, holding her hand, and there was nothing left for Ethan to hide behind. The door clicked shut behind them. It was a small room off the main hall, meant for the bridal party to freshen up, not for confrontations. A bouquet of white roses wilted slightly in a crystal vase on a marble side table. The air was too cold, the silence sharper than glass. Ethan stood with his back to her at first, his posture too still. Then he turned. What the hell do you think you're doing? Lily didn't flinch. She removed her gloves slowly, folded them in her lap. Her tone was even, answering a question. Ethan stepped closer. His voice dropped, quiet but venomous. You showed up at my wedding. With a kid. In front of cameras. In front of her. Do you have any idea what you've done? She met his eyes. He asked where his father was. Ethan laughed, short and bitter. You think this is some noble act? Don't lie to me, Lily. This wasn't about him. This was about you. Revenge. Lily opened her purse. pulled out a manila envelope, worn but clean. She slid it across the table toward him without a word that he hesitated before picking it up. Opened it. The DNA test was on top. Certified. Confirmed. His name. Noah's name. Beneath it, a folded letter. Ethan's face stiffened the moment he saw the handwriting that he didn't need to read it. You kept this, he said. You wrote it. Then you never sent it. But you signed it. I'm scared, you wrote. I don't know if I'll be a good father. I told myself that meant you cared. That you'd come back. Ethan dropped the folder on the table like it burned his hand. I had no choice, he muttered. You were unraveling. You were. I was pregnant. Lily snapped, her voice finally rising. And scared. You didn't walk away because I was unstable. You walked away because it was easier than staying. He paced now, 2 steps back, then forward again. He looked toward the door, not for an escape, but to make sure it was still closed. You blindsided me, he said. No. I reminded you. Ethan's eyes flicked toward her, storm-dark and calculating. You think this ends here? You think walking in with a look-alike and some papers gives you leverage? Lily stood slowly. I don't want leverage. I want truth. You've built a life on lies, Ethan. That boy out there, he doesn't want your money. He just wants to know where he came from. Ethan scoffed. He came from a mistake. The words hit the air like a slap that Lily's hands curled at her sides. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He's 4. He has your laugh. Your habit of biting his lip when he's nervous. He's not a mistake. He's the only good thing that came from knowing you. Ethan stared at her. For a moment, something flickered behind his eyes, then vanished. He won't get near my name. Or my estate. I'll fight it. Lily walked to the door. Opened it. You already did, she said. 5 years ago. She stepped out, back into the bright chaos of the wedding that now teetered on collapse. Ethan remained inside, staring down at the letter he'd tried to forget. And for the first time since she'd walked in, he realized he might be the one who'd just been exposed. The champagne hadn't even finished bubbling when the announcement came. Guests murmured and exchanged confused glances as a flushed event coordinator stepped onto the microphone and cleared her throat. Her voice wavered beneath the crystal chandeliers. Ladies and gentlemen, due to unforeseen circumstances, the reception has been postponed. We apologize for the inconvenience. Shuttles will be arranged shortly. Silence. Then confusion. Then whispers. Valerie stood at the edge of the dance floor, her hands trembling as she clutched her bouquet. Her veil hung limp behind her, the smile she had rehearsed for months now frozen in place. Incomplete. She scanned the room. N.O. Ethan. N.O. explanation. N.O. first dance. Only stairs. She moved quickly toward the hallway, past the murmurs and half-sipped wine glasses, and found him in the back corridor, pacing like a man on the edge of something crumbling. Ethan, she said, voice sharp. What's going on? He didn't turn. We're leaving, he muttered. Now? I need to go. Valerie stepped in front of him, blocking his path. You disappear in the middle of our wedding, cancel the reception, and now you're leaving? What is this? She had no right. Who? He hesitated. Then, Lily. Valerie's mouth parted slightly. That was your ex? Ethan ran a hand down his face. She brought a kid. My kid, apparently. She's trying to humiliate me. Valerie stared. And is he? She's bluffing, he snapped. It's a stunt. But even as he said it, his voice cracked. Just slightly. Valerie folded her arms, her tone cool. He looks like you. Ethan opened his mouth, closed it, then turned away. Down the hall, the door swung open again. It was Ryan, his best man, sweat beading on his forehead, phone in hand. We have a problem. Ethan looked up. Someone snapped a photo. Of the boy. Of Lily. It's already online. Twitter's climbing fast. They're calling it the runaway groom's secret son. It's everywhere. Valerie stepped back like she'd been struck. Ryan handed Ethan the phone. A zoomed-in shot of Lily and Noah standing beside the floral arch, caught in the hush just after they arrived. Noah's face is clear. Those same eyes, same expression. The caption read, "The real reason Ethan Cole canceled the party?" Ethan's hand shook. Delete it, he barked. Ryan looked at him like he was insane. It's viral. You can't. Delete viral. More notifications buzzed on the screen. Mentions. Tags. Blogs speculating. One headline screamed, Ethan Cole's wedding shattered by secret son? Valerie stepped closer. You lied to me. Ethan turned toward her. I didn't know he existed. She narrowed her eyes. But you knew about Lily. You knew there was more to the story than you told me. And now, on our wedding day, you want to pretend it's all coincidence. Ethan looked between them, his best man, his bride, the photo glowing on the screen that he felt it unraveling. He had built a life on precision, charm, and redirection. But now it was coming undone, not in courtrooms or confessionals, online, viral, and this time, the truth didn't need a microphone. It had a face. A 4-year-old boy who looked just like him. The penthouse was too quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your chest, full of things left unsaid. Valerie sat alone in Ethan's office, the wedding ring still clinging to her finger like a splinter. Her gown hung in a garment bag in the next room, untouched since she tore it off. She stared at the screen of his locked laptop. 5 failed password attempts. Then, on the 6th, success, he always used his mother's maiden name. She remembered it from a story he once told at dinner, casually, about her dying when he was a teenager. A moment meant to draw sympathy. Now it opened the door to everything. Inside, folders layered with coded labels. She clicked through them with trembling fingers. At first, it was just financial records, investments, merger documents, drafts of speeches. Then she found a folder named Settlement_A13. It held scanned copies of NDAs, wire transfers, and legal letters addressed to Miss Lily Ray Halden. 1 page caught her breath. This document confirms that the aforementioned party waives all public claim to Mr. Ethan Cole's assets, child support, or estate, in exchange for a monthly disbursement for an undisclosed term. The nature of this agreement is to remain sealed. She scrolled further. Attached was a psychological profile Ethan had submitted about Lily. Statements from a therapist she'd never met, claiming signs of emotional instability. It read like a setup, but the file metadata showed the profile was drafted not by a clinic, but by a PR firm. And then came the emails, buried in an archived folder titled Logistics. Ethan PI Services, flagged confidential, subject, urgent, unplanned complication, she's pregnant. Make her disappear quietly. Use the legal route. No press, no drama. Draft something airtight. I want her gone before this snowballs. I'll handle optics. Valerie stared at the screen, ice crawling across her spine. It wasn't just neglect. It was deliberate erasure. The man she had agreed to marry hadn't run from fatherhood. He'd orchestrated a disappearance. And now that truth had a face. A child's face. The office door opened behind her. She didn't turn. Ethan's voice was low, almost amused. Looking for something? Valerie stood slowly. Her hands didn't shake. Not this time. You lied. To me, she said. All of it. About Lily. About the boy. You made her vanish. Ethan walked toward the desk, calm as ever. I protected myself. That's what people in my position do. Protected? She spat. You used lawyers to silence a pregnant woman. She was unstable. She would have ruined everything. Valerie narrowed her eyes. You don't even know if she was unstable. You had someone write it for you. Ethan's voice turned cold. What exactly are you accusing me of, Valerie? She hesitated, just long enough for him to notice. I'm saying, I see you now, and I don't like what I see. He smiled. That same tight, charming smile he used at galas and interviews. You're overreacting. You always had a flair for the dramatic. There it was. The gaslight. The condescension cloaked in concern. Valerie had ignored it before, shrugged off. The subtle digs, the possessive control. But not now. Not with a child's face burned into her memory. Not with the evidence open on his desk. She stepped back, brushing past him. I'm going to the press, she said. Ethan's smile didn't falter, but his eyes sharpened. Be careful, he said. You have a lot to lose. So do you, she replied. Then she walked out, the sound of her heels clicking like a countdown. The cafe was tucked behind an art gallery, quiet and unassuming. No reporters. No cameras. Just rain tapping gently on the windows and 2 women seated across from each other, the weight of a shared truth between them. Valerie arrived first. Put up, sunglasses still on. Her hands trembled slightly as she stirred a cappuccino she didn't intend to drink. Then Lily walked in, calm, composed, holding a plain envelope. She didn't smile. She didn't ask how Valerie was. She simply sat down and said, Why now? Valerie removed her glasses. Her eyes were swollen from lack of sleep. Because he made me feel like I was crazy for asking questions, she said. And now I know I wasn't. Lily nodded slowly. She had heard those words before. From herself, Valerie leaned forward. I need to know everything. From the beginning. Not what he told me. What really happened? Lily slid the envelope across the table. Inside, a series of printed photos. Her son at 2 days old, wrapped in a hospital blanket. A doctor's report, confirming paternity through cord blood analysis, never submitted to court. Bank statements showing years of quiet payments from an untraceable trust. And finally, a photo of Ethan holding her son, just once. Just after birth. His face blurred, but unmistakable. He told me he couldn't be a father, Lily said quietly. That he had too much to lose. But he held Noah before he left. I watched him walk away. Then the lawyers came. The threats. The hush money. I took it because I was afraid. Valerie flipped through the pages, her breath catching on everyone but Noah's eyes. Ethan's eyes. The same. There was no denying it. He said she was unstable. Valerie murmured, Lily. Met her gaze. That's what he needed people to believe. Valerie closed the envelope. Her voice dropped. I found emails. From a private investigator. He told someone to make you disappear quietly. Lily didn't react. I always wondered how he moved on so cleanly, she said. Now I know. Silence settled between them. But it wasn't empty. That it was loaded. With years of silence, of manipulation, of carefully constructed lies finally being unraveled by the very person meant to uphold them. Valerie reached into her coat and pulled out a small device. I started recording him, she said. Not just the big conversations. Everything. He's careless when he's angry. Lily's brows lifted, barely. And what are you planning to do with it? I don't know yet, Valerie admitted. But I'm not going to be another woman he edits out of his life. Lily stared at her for a long moment, then offered the faintest nod. Neither am I. When Valerie stood to leave, she hesitated. Can I meet him? She asked. Your son. Lily paused, then said, if this gets worse, you might be the only person who can testify it's real. Valerie gave a small, bitter smile. Funny. That's what he used to say about love. She left without finishing her drink. Outside, the rain had stopped, but something had begun, something slow, relentless, and for the first time, Ethan wasn't the one writing the script. Two women were. The headlines shifted almost overnight. Billionaire. Businessman seeks to reunite with son he never knew. Ethan Cole's redemption arc, from absent father to devoted dad. Lily scrolled through the stories in silence. Each article wrapped in a glossy photo of Ethan smiling gently, wearing neutral tones, holding a donation check, or crouched beside a child at a charity event. Not Noah, of course. Just enough of a stand-in to complete the illusion. She set the phone down and looked across the table at her lawyer, Tara Brenner. He's playing the public, Lily said. Tara nodded. She was calm, seasoned, and blunt. Of course he is. Ethan doesn't care about parenting. He cares about optics. This isn't a custody battle. It's a reputation war. Lily leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. And the media's falling. For it. For now, Tara said. But we don't need them. We need the court. And we need patience. She slid a folder toward Lily. This is the petition he just filed. Joint legal and physical custody. Weekly visits. Holidays rotated. Lily, open the file and read the top line. Petitioner, Ethan James Cole, Tara continued. He's claiming he only found out recently that you withheld the truth, that you were emotionally compromised. Lily's laugh was sharp. He said that 5 years ago. Only this time, he's pretending to be gentle about it. You know what this is, right? Tara asked. He's baiting you. He wants you angry, loud, reactive. That way he looks composed, and you look unstable. Again, Lily exhaled, steadying herself. No. Response, she said. No public statement. Tara smiled faintly. Good. But someone else beat you to it. That night, an email thread leaked online. Screenshots of Ethan's private correspondence with the investigator he hired 5 years ago. It included the infamous line, she's pregnant. Make her disappear quietly. The leak came from an anonymous burner account. But Lily didn't need to guess who sent it. Valerie. She didn't warn her. Didn't ask for permission. She didn't need to. Within hours, the narrative turned. Blogs reposted the emails. Feminist activists shared threads exposing the timeline. A viral TikTok broke down the legal gag order Lily had signed and why women in unequal relationships are often coerced into silence. Even celebrities began to weigh in. By morning, Ethan's PR team was in full retreat. The same outlets that had praised his newfound commitment to fatherhood were now questioning whether it was all a carefully timed stunt. Lily stood at her kitchen window, watching Noah color dinosaurs at the table. He glanced up. Mom? Yes. Why are people on your phone talking about Dad? She moved toward him, crouched beside his chair, and touched his cheek. Because truth doesn't like being hidden forever, she said softly. That he nodded as if he understood. Then returned to his drawing. At her office later, Tara was reviewing motions when a new message popped up on her screen. Court hearing expedited. Ethan's request for custody had backfired. The court now wanted testimony in person, with records, and Ethan would have to face not just Lily, but everything he'd buried. Tara smiled. It's starting, she said, and for the first time, the system was listening to the woman who had been silenced for far too long. The courtroom was quiet, too quiet for what it carried. No cameras, no press, just polished wood, a family court judge, and the three people who once shared a name without ever sharing a home. Lily sat on the witness stand in a navy blouse, her voice steady despite the fire in her chest. Beside her, a small stack of papers, contracts, payment records, hospital files, and a copy of the NDA with Ethan's signature. She didn't look at him as she began. I was 6 months pregnant when he left, she said. No warning. Just gone. Ethan sat across the room with his lawyer, hands clasped tight. He hadn't spoken since entering. Lily continued, eyes locked on the judge. Days later, his attorney came with documents. I was told I could either sign away my right to speak about the pregnancy or risk a public smear campaign. Mental instability, they said. Emotional risk to the child. But I wasn't unstable. I was alone. The judge scribbled a note. Tara nodded gently from the front row. Calm as always. I took the money, Lily admitted. I moved. I raised Noah myself. Quietly. But I kept records, every one of them. Not for revenge, but in case this day came. She handed the first folder to the bailiff. Valerie, seated beside Tara, stood next. The judge raised an eyebrow but allowed her forward. I have something to submit, she said, pulling out a small drive. Audio files. Ethan. He didn't know I was recording. The courtroom seemed to still further. The first clip played over the speakers. Ethan's voice, crisp and unmistakable. She served her purpose. I cleaned the mess. She's not a threat unless someone lets her talk. The second, Noah isn't my responsibility. He was never supposed to exist, not publicly. Valerie sat back down, her arms crossed, tears clinging to her lashes but refusing to fall. All eyes turned to Ethan. He didn't move. The judge asked, Mr. Cole, would you like to respond before we deliberate? Ethan stood slowly, adjusting the cuff of his tailored jacket as if preparing for a speech. But when he opened his mouth, something cracked. You think you've won because you can cry on cue? He snapped at Lily. Tara rose instantly. Your Honor. The judge raised a hand. Let him speak. Ethan's eyes narrowed. I built everything. While you sat in the dark, blaming me for your life. I gave you a way out, Lily. She stared at him without blinking. I made you invisible, he growled. Because you were in the way. Silence followed. Sharp, horrified. Even his lawyer looked stunned. The judge closed her notebook slowly. Mr. Cole, I suggest you sit down. He did, jaw tight, chest rising fast. Lily remained composed, her hands folded in her lap. She had imagined this moment for years, not the explosion, but the unmasking. Now it was done. The courtroom adjourned with quiet formality. A ruling would come within the week. Outside, Valerie held the door for Lily. The two women didn't speak, but when Lily glanced over, Valerie gave her the smallest nod, a nod that said, You're not invisible anymore. The judge's voice was steady, deliberate. This court grants full legal and physical custody of the minor, Noah Ray Halden, to his mother, Lily Ray Halden. Mr. Ethan James Cole is hereby denied visitation until a full psychological evaluation is completed and reviewed by this court. The non-disclosure agreement is voided. All prior settlements are deemed coercive and nullified. A sharp, silent pause followed. No one clapped. No one sighed. It wasn't a moment for relief. Just confirmation. Cold, necessary, final. Ethan didn't move. He sat frozen in his chair, jaw locked, eyes fixed somewhere beyond the polished courtroom walls. His lawyer leaned in, whispered something. He gave no sign of hearing. Lily remained still on the bench. Her hands were clenched in her lap, not from anger, not even from fear, from the force it took to stay upright. Dignity had carried her this far. She would not drop it now. Tara touched her elbow gently. It's done. Lily nodded once. Valerie stood from the gallery, her eyes steady but unreadable. She hadn't spoken throughout the hearing. Her presence had said everything that needed saying. Outside, the courthouse doors opened to chaos. Cameras flashed like lightning. Microphones stretched forward. Questions flew in a dozen directions. Lily, how do you feel? Will Ethan appeal? Was the child ever in danger? Lily kept her head down. She wrapped an arm around Noah's shoulders, pulling him close. He gripped her hand, small fingers squeezing through the roar. Valerie stepped beside them. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. But she stood like armor. Security cleared a path through the crowd. Lily kept her gaze on the car waiting at the curb. She didn't stop. She didn't respond. The only voice that mattered was Noah's. Mommy, he whispered. Are they all mad at us? She crouched beside him, shielding him from the cameras with her coat. No, she said. They're just loud. But you won, right? She hesitated, then nodded. Yes, we did. From across the street, Ethan emerged behind tinted glass. His car idled, engine humming. His face, pale, stiff, blank, peeked through the lowered window for only a moment. He watched them, not with fury, not even with regret, just absence as if the moment never touched him. Then the car pulled away, swallowed by traffic and fading noise. Inside her own car, Lily let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Noah kicked off his shoes and climbed into her lap. Can we go home now? Lily kissed the top of his head. Soon. Valerie sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through headlines. It's all over the news, she murmured. The truth finally made it out. Lily stared out the window, the courthouse shrinking behind them. Yeah, she said. But so did the damage. The car rolled forward, away from the courthouse, away from the noise, toward a life that still held questions, but fewer lies. Not peace, not yet, but a verdict, a voice, and for the first time in years, the right to say, this is mine. This is ours. The living room was warm again. Afternoon sunlight filtered through. The pale curtains, landing on crayon marks and the soft edges of toys left under the coffee table. The house was quiet in a way that wasn't empty. It breathed, like it was finally allowed to rest. Noah sat cross-legged on the floor, tongue peeking from the corner of his mouth as he focused on his drawing. A piece of thick white paper covered. In colors, trees, clouds, a crooked house, and 3 stick figures. One tall, one medium, one small. Lily glanced over from the kitchen, drying her hands on a towel. You're drawing us? She asked gently. He nodded, holding up the page. This is you, he said, pointing to the tall figure with brown hair and a red dress. And this is me. His finger shifted to the smaller figure, a messy scribble of curls and a blue shirt. She smiled. Very accurate. He hesitated, then pointed to the third. This one, this is the dad. Lily froze for half a breath. The figure was smaller than the others. Just a paper outline. A question mark scribbled where the face should be. Her heart tightened. She crossed the room and knelt beside him. You're thinking a lot about him lately, huh? Noah looked up. I don't know what to think. Everyone keeps saying stuff. That he's famous. That he's bad. That he's gone. Lily reached for the paper, smoothed the corner with her thumb. You don't need him to know who you are. He stared at her, searching. But he's where I come from, right? Lily nodded. Yes, he's part of the beginning, but not the middle, and not the ending. Noah tilted his head. What's my real name? She hesitated, then reached into the side drawer of the bookshelf and pulled out a thin white envelope. She handed it to him without a word that he opened it slowly. Inside was a legal certificate. At the top, amendment of legal name. She waited as he read each line with care. His fingers traced the words, Noah Hale. His voice was soft, then louder. My name is Noah Hale? Lily met his eyes. If you want it to be. He looked back at the paper, a quiet grin stretching across his face. Then he looked down at his drawing. With slow, careful movements, he erased the question mark from the third figure, then colored in the shirt, but left the face blank. Maybe someday I'll draw him in, he said, not looking up. But not yet. Lily brushed a hand over his curls. That's okay. The front door creaked open. Valerie stepped inside, holding a grocery bag and a weary smile. Still drawing masterpieces? She asked. Noah held up his picture proudly. Look, I have a new name now. Valerie crouched beside them, her eyes soft. It suits you. Lily stood slowly, giving them space. She looked around the room, at the drawings on the fridge, the quiet hum of peace beginning to settle. Her body ached, not with pain, but with release. For years, she had carried the weight of silence. Now she watched her son name himself, choose himself, and smile while doing it. Outside, the wind moved through the trees without force. Inside, for the first time in a long, long while, everything felt like it finally belonged. Noah folded the paper gently. I think I like being Noah Hale, he said, and Lily whispered back, so do I.